Welcome to Impact Farming, where we introduce you to the people and ideas that will have a massive impact on your farming operation. Brought to you by Farm Marketer. Sit down, start the engine, and let's roll with today's show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Impact Farming Show. Today we have Dorothy Long joining us. Dorothy, how are you?
Great. How are you doing?
Good. I am so excited to have you on the show to talk about Canadian Food Focus and your mission of connecting consumers and agriculture. So, before we dive in, can you tell us a little bit about you, your background, and then let's talk about Canadian Food Focus.
That sounds great. Well, yes, I feel like I have been on this mission all my life. I grew up on a farm in Saskatchewan. It was a grain farm. We had cattle, we had hogs for a time. I went out and picked eggs with the chickens and just had a great childhood growing up on the farm, riding horses and near all my cousins. So I have that in my blood.
Beautiful.
But my brother was always going to be the farmer. So I then went off to university and studied home economics and education and was going to be a home ec teacher. Because I really felt that, those life skills are so important for people to live great quality of life. So that was kind of the mission I was on at that time. So I got my degree, and when I went to go to be a home ec teacher, there weren't a lot of jobs. And I had met a guy and wanted to kind of stay near to Saskatoon where he was. And so I ended up working with a group of home economists, and we started doing kind of communications work with different agriculture groups. So we worked with lentils and canola and pork and the food processors and help them to hone their messages about food and agriculture. And so that's sort of how I got my start. I worked for several years with the canola industry, and one of my favorite projects there was something we called Canola Camp, where we brought in food influencers from across Canada, the US. We had people from Japan and England and China come, and we did a 2-day food tour for them about, prairie agriculture specifically, a lot about canola. And so that really kind of launched me into working with different influencer groups and helping them find answers to their questions. And then I joined Farm and Food Care Saskatchewan, and we developed Canadian Food Focus in the last couple of years. So
Lovely. I love your career. I
it's
do.
been so fun. Yeah, there's nothing better than agriculture and food. Like,
Yeah.
I've been so blessed and got to meet so many interesting and cool people. So
I love when you said you were a home economist because I
mhm.
am a 4-H'er, like through
Mhm.
and through from
Yeah,
the time you could get in at that age. I forget if it was 6, 7, 8, whatever it was, right till I think they didn't extend it yet at that point. So it was 18
oh
or
yeah,
whatever it was done. Love 4-H. So we worked with a lot of home economists in
yeah,
4-H, right?
yeah. They have a whole foods program as one of the things that you can do. Yeah. So
Oh, wow. Lovely. Okay, so Canadian Food Focus. Can you
mhm.
tell us a little bit more about, I love always knowing the why, the
Mhm.
idea, how did it come about, and then what you do, the mission, the goals, who's all involved, that kind of stuff. That intrigues me.
Okay, no, that sounds good. Well, Canadian Food Focus is a national consumer awareness program. We launched in 2019 with really the idea of, trying to answer consumers' questions about Canadian food and farming. So it was really born out of that idea of being able to tell farmers' stories to consumers. There was a lot of research at the time from the Center for Food Integrity saying, being transparent, sharing values, telling stories was the way to connect to consumers. And I think as an agriculture industry, this is something that more and more we're recognizing that we need to do. but I think we've always had trouble executing it. A lot of times our, projects end up being within the echo chamber of agriculture. We end up talking to ourselves.
Yeah.
And so, we came, we started to come at it sort of from a different perspective of really thinking about what do consumers want to know from us rather than what we want to tell them.
Mm.
And, that little bit of a tweak really helped us kind of focus in, and we are seeing that over the last 5 or so years that we've been doing this, that we are reaching those urban consumers, and, we are making those connections and finally getting out of that echo chamber of agriculture. So,
Mm. I love that. And you said you're a national organization, and I was trying to think before our recording here, and I've been disconnected from this a little bit. Is there any other, and if there is, and I'm forgetting, I'm going to be so embarrassed and I might cut it out. But I'm trying to think. There's provincial, like Saskatchewan Farm and Food Care, and there's Ontario. Is there any other national organization that represents agriculture? Am I blanking?
Well, there are 3 different farm and food care organizations, one in Saskatchewan, one in Ontario, and one in PEI. And
Right.
then the Center for Food Integrity, which was formerly Farm and Food Care Canada, they changed their names. I can't even remember when they did that. But that is the organization that does a lot of research, and we all work together. And there's other organizations in different provinces that have sort of that public trust as their mandate, and so are doing a bit of this work. But really, I think that's why we put together Canadian Food Focus, is we really needed something that was consumer facing. Like lots of times within those organizations, we're wanting to talk to consumers, but we're also talking to our members and to farmers. And so, it gets a bit confusing to have all those messages in one place. So that's sort of why we started, something a little bit different that was totally consumer facing, so that that's the focus of it. It's very straightforward. There's so much information out there that consumers just need to be, they need to find something in a very simple way, and it needs to be very straightforward. And so there's also a lot of, of the different farm organizations that are, of course, talking about, how beef is sustainably grown, or, how to cook lentils. But we really also wanted to bring it together in one place because, oftentimes consumers are thinking about what's for dinner. They're not necessarily thinking, oh, I want,
Beef.
something very specific. Yeah. So that way, by bringing it together, we kind of paint a bigger picture of agriculture,
Nice.
and, it's more conducive to the way I think consumers think and
Yeah.
want to find information.
That's clever. I think everybody's efforts and all the efforts that have come before and are going on right now are so important, but a united voice. That's,
Yeah.
we don't need to go there, but sometimes I think that's the beautiful part of our industry is we have so many segments and so many like different types of producers, and we're all spreading our message, but let's come together and represent agriculture, right? I think that's missing sometimes. One voice.
Yeah. And that's, I guess that's what we felt too. And, we very much work with all of those different organizations. It's not that we're going to go out and reinvent how or rethink about how to, tell those important messages. So we really are trying to align with all those different groups and really be a place that amplifies everybody's voice. So
Nice. When I was researching you for this episode and going through and learning a little bit more and refreshing, I'm like, they do exactly what I do. You guys bring
yes,
together all the different players in the industry, amplify and organize the information. And for a
yeah,
marketer, I'm an ag media company, impact farming, I bring on guests and I organize everybody into a voice. So I'm like, that you guys have the same mission and
yeah.
same structure as we do, essentially. You're an information source.
Yeah. And
Hub.
it's so, I think that's so important with all the, not only is there a lot of information, but there's a lot of misinformation, disinformation. So the easier we can make it for people to, stumble upon the good information, I think the better. So,
I love it. So going one step further on that, you're an information hub, consumer hub. The way I see it, and then correct me if I'm wrong or take it from there, you essentially grab the voices of the producer groups and the farmers, bring them in
mhm.
into a website, YouTube channel, podcast, all of that good stuff, and then work to get the consumer to come find this information, right? Do you want to touch a
Yeah.
little bit on that? And the do you call it a consumer hub? Is that
Yeah, I get, yeah, yes, we have
information
been. It's
hub?
kind of our website, yes,
Okay,
yeah. But it
perfect.
is a hub of information, and really we've organized it in a way that follows sort of Canadian ingredients
Oh,
from farm gate to plate. But we kind of flip it on its going the opposite way, where we kind of lead with that, the food kind of information, because really consumers, the most intimate way that they come to agriculture is through the food that they eat. So we really use that as kind of the hub to um, connect with them. And so on our website, we have an in the kitchen section where we're looking at Canadian ingredients and helping people to understand how to buy different Canadian ingredients. So for example, apples, what variety of Canadian apples are out there? What am I looking for when I'm buying them? And then when I take them home, how do I store them? And then how can I prepare them? So that's sort of one section. And also in that section, the Center for Food Integrity research for the last couple of years has indicated that consumers are very concerned about food prices. And so we have, information there where we're helping consumers with tips on grocery shopping or, menu planning or all those things that will help them save money and make their food a little bit more affordable. And then we have a health section where we're talking about the health benefits of different Canadian ingredients. But for example, we would tackle it from, am I getting enough fiber in my diet, and, making it more consumer centric. And we're working with a lot of dietitians to provide that information. So all of our website, we're using, sort of the experts in the field to convey those messages. And then from there, we have a section called Canadian Food Stories, where we're really trying to tell those good news stories about Canadian agriculture. And we're weaving in things about sustainability, about how farmers are upcycling, leftover French fries to feed cattle, those kind of fun stories. And also looking at innovation, because I think that oftentimes farmers, Canadians think of them in their overalls with their pitchforks, and there's so much innovation in agriculture, and it is affecting, you know, the, how we're doing it, and, making us better environmental stewards, and those kind of things. So we're telling those stories and weaving that in there. And then we have an on the farm section, and a lot of this section is really videos where we're giving consumers that behind the scenes look at, how our, cattle raised, how we even have one on milking a dairy that has water buffalo. So we really try to find, all those unique farms, and all the different kinds of farms across Canada in each region. So yeah, there's a lot of fun videos there as well. And then we also added a what's in season section, so consumers can go and find out what fruits and vegetables are in season. They can link to an article that talks about, what are the different varieties that they can buy, how to store them, and then also information on how they're grown. So we, can weave in those plant science kind of conversations and talk a little bit about pesticides and those kind of things in that section as well. And then the final section is a learn to cook section, and that we started that during COVID, and it's kind of, that home ec teacher in me wants,
Yes.
feels that learning to cook is a very important school or skill. And, I think it helps people to be healthier and, so.
That needs to, I gotta hop in on that, Dorothy. That needs to make a comeback. I think that was cooking needs to make a comeback, and it does. It sounds funny saying it, but I don't know. It's about a year or two ago, maybe actually probably longer, before the pandemic. And I was at a conference and they shared some stats on how many people actually prepare food. And
Mhm.
I was talking to somebody, and we're big beef eaters. We're beef farmers, right? Very
Mhm.
nutritious. Love it. I'll shout it from the rooftop. But I think there's a lot of people that just don't have the bandwidth at the end of the day or the know-how to make a good steak. And I remember when I was
Mhm.
younger, I didn't make a good steak. So what do? If you don't know how to cook meat, you don't have the time, you pop in a pizza or
Mhm.
whatever. No judgment, but that learning to cook again it needs to make a comeback. That sounds a little bit judgy, but it's not.
No, and that's a soapbox that I could quite easily
Oh,
jump on. And I do know that actually in Ontario, there's talk of them bringing back home economics to the schools because they're finding that so many kids don't have those, you know,
yeah.
skills, not only for cooking, but for managing their finances and kind of all those important things that home
Yeah.
economics taught. But that's a whole other podcast,
We'll do
probably.
another episode on that one, Dorothy. I
But
think
yeah,
we
my
have a
whole
lot in common. Sorry,
well,
go
and
ahead.
that's sort of what, no, I was going to say, and that's sort of why we kind of built in this learn to cook area. And really overall, like that's how we've tackled this whole issue is that really we're trying to improve Canadians' food literacy from farm to plate. So we're providing them the information so that they have those skills to make confident food choices and, just feel better about what they're eating.
Well, and I think with you guys having that and them talking about doing that in schools, something that is huge on social media is the trad wife, the traditional wife. And
Oh.
wife, or we'll leave that alone. But the thing is, anywhere on social media, and I think it was really brought on by the pandemic. For the first time, people are like, what? Like empty shelves? We took that for granted. And then
Mhm.
food security. And then people are like, wait a minute, we slowed down during the pandemic. So I think now more than ever, just thinking this out loud, now more than ever, agriculture has the opportunity to really speak to that because people want to know where their food's from, right? Where
Mhm.
before it was just like, let's go 100 miles an hour and food's on the shelf, we're good. Now the seed has been sown
Mhm.
with programs like this coming in. That's perfect timing. I just thought of that.
No,
Yeah.
that's good. And you're right. I think people, do want to take the time to answer those questions. But I think, I feel like we did slow down through the pandemic, but we're starting to kind of speed up again.
True enough.
And yeah,
Yeah. Faster than ever, probably. We're making up for lost time now, I find. Oh, but
yeah, yeah.
good and bad, right?
Hmm.
Sorry, I had to throw that in there because,
No, I think that's
well,
very interesting.
social media, it's important, and what's going on in those trends and
Hmm.
people wanting to know more about their food. That's exactly what we're talking about, right?
No, and that's really, with that we totally use social media as the place to push these messages. It's one thing to have this hub of information, but really we use social media, to push those messages out and to really, bring people back to the information or to I think, people's attention span, we're all busy and it's shorter. So, we're trying to um, create content that's kind of short form, but then link it to longer form content where people can find out more information if they want to. But, it's almost, I like to call it micro learning, where,
Mm.
that's my excuse for flipping through TikTok for an hour is that I'm micro learning. But, it's
I like
funny
that one.
the little things that that you can pick up doing that. Not that I recommend losing too many hours to TikTok, but
think we're all guilty here and there. Actually, I was going to ask you, is Canadian Food Focus on TikTok?
Yeah, we recently have joined
Yes.
the TikTok multiverse or universe, and yeah, so we've started to create reels, and the reels we put out on TikTok, also on Instagram, and then also on YouTube as well. So
Oh, perfect. Exactly what we do too. And I was posting one of my shorts for an episode like this, and then an account popped up. I'm like, I think this is Dorothy. I think this is
oh,
Canadian Food Focus. And I do believe I follow you now. What a
okay.
weird conversation we're having in this world, right? I follow you and I seen you online. Just saying it out loud sounds a little funny, but here we are. That's exactly that micro learning. I love your wording too, because
Mhm.
short little snippets is the way we learn now, right?
Yeah, I really think so. And then you can kind of let it resonate in your head, and then you can go and find more information when you have time, or, and it's another way of kind of hooking people in and building that kind of baseline trust with them so that they'll keep coming back to us when they have other questions or are looking for that kind of information.
I love it. That was one of my questions, and I think you just answered it. You have the content from the food industry and agriculture, and
Mhm.
you bring in the consumers with short form, all the different places. You're mainly online drawing them into your content, right? Just like we were
Yes.
discussing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. We have a Pinterest account. We're on TikTok.
Ooh,
We do a little bit on Twitter. I don't feel that as many consumers are on Twitter or X. I know it's a place that the ag industry
yes.
goes a lot,
Yeah.
but I don't find as many, or at least they're not there to um, maybe learn about food is the best way I can put it. We're
It's
on there,
different.
but yeah, it's not our
Yeah.
most, yeah.
Each of those little worlds are little worlds of themselves, right?
They are, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you kind of got to figure that all out. So,
Have you, in all the content that you're putting out, the conversations you're having, I know I was reading some of the stats and maybe you want to share those. You've had some great reach. Have you been
mhm.
able to pinpoint what consumers like to hear about? What's the most popular content?
Well, definitely the food content. That's
Okay.
what really brings them in and keeps them coming back. Like on a day-to-day basis, we eat, 3+ times a day. So, people are thinking about what am I going to have for supper? And so, that's leading with that food really brings them in. But I would also say are on, kind of the behind the scenes videos of farms.
Mm,
It's a lot of pickup, and so do the articles, the Canadian Food Focus or Food Story articles, about innovation and those type of things. People are very interested in that as well. So,
okay. It's good to know. I know there's obviously farmers in our audience, and we're
mhm,
always trying to figure out the best way to share our story and what to say, right? And
mhm.
don't drown them in facts, but knowing
Yes.
what consumers actually want to hear is important, right?
Yeah, and thinking about a different way to do it. Like we recently just did a video on chicken farm with a chicken farmer, and she's really into fashion. And so we used that kind of as a way to connect with the audience. She was started out in her outfit, explaining her outfit, as you see lots of times on TikTok videos, what she was wearing that day. And then she's at the barn and she's got to switch into her barn clothes for biosecurity reasons. So we use that kind of story to, you know,
Clever.
think about fashion and how that brings people in, and then build in that message of biosecurity. So,
Well, and it
so
makes
that,
it relatable, right?
yes, yeah.
Like that young gal that's fashionable, just like Susie in downtown Toronto. What?
Yep.
I didn't know farmers were like that. Like you said before, don't they wear overalls? Aren't they like 150 years old holding a pitchfork, right? They're like, wow, there's a young fashionable lady in agriculture. That's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it sort of takes everything and turns it on its head too. But so, yeah,
I like
no.
that. Yeah, neat. Um, do you have anything else you want to share about the platform, reach, content, any of that? the next thing I want to ask you about is your influencer program and your farm tour program. And two reasons. I'm curious how you get your stories, and also if you're looking for farmers to share their story. I'm curious how that all works for you guys. So if you have anything to add
Yeah.
to previous, go ahead, and then we can go there.
I think we're good
Okay,
on that side, so we can jump into that. Do you want me
perfect.
to just
Yeah.
jump in?
Tell us about the program. I'm curious how you connect and get farmers on board, and you work with dietitians as well. So share
Mhm.
all of that good stuff,
Okay.
please.
Well, I think I mentioned when in my introduction that I had worked in the canola industry for many years, and we were um, looking for ways to connect with influencers. Like there's so many influencers like dietitians and chefs who are getting those questions about food and agriculture, but maybe don't have the background or the resources to be able to answer those questions. And so we really wanted to create a program that supported them and really built champions and explained things and answered their questions. And then they in turn can go back and, answer those questions for Canadians. So when I was working in the canola industry, we started this program, and it was Anita Stewart. I don't know if you've heard of her. She was the food laureate at the University of Guelph and a real champion of Canadian cuisine, and really started the movement to define what Canadian cuisine was about. And she was a big mentor of mine. And I can remember back, she kept saying, you need to bring these people to Saskatchewan to the farm so they can see what's going on. And at the time, the olive oil industry was taking all of these food writers and dietitians over to Spain and to Italy to tour olive farms. And I was like, how can we even begin to compete with a tour like that
Yeah.
in Saskatchewan? And she said, they will love Saskatchewan. You just need to do it. And so we did. And they did love it. And, I think when when you live somewhere, you don't realize the beauty of it and the stories and all of that. And so it was a way to see farming through their eyes too. And so that kind of started us on this path of doing more farm tours. And so then in, I think, 2015, we started doing them through Farm and Food Care Saskatchewan. Farm and Food Care Ontario does some as well, and now we do them through Canadian Food Focus. But over that period, we've really built a lot of champions, built a lot of relationships, and then with these influencers. And so when they see an issue or have a question, they come to us to find the answers. And yeah, it's been great. We also do webinars, and we have a Facebook group and a few things like that to keep the dialogue going.
You are so, I find myself so easily able to go down the path of politics, like just that, but I won't. And it's not really political, it's just more trending topics. And if you look at it, everybody's online, everybody has a voice, right?
Mhm.
It's not just the big media companies and the big companies anymore.
No.
Politicians, everybody has a voice. And very often, I'm sure the reason you guys are here, you'll see a dietitian come up and they have totally skewed information, or they'll be recommending like processed Cheerios over like red meat. We all know this,
Mhm.
right? In
Mhm.
agriculture. Um, and we can get quite heated with that. But I think getting into the schools and with those dietitians, because they don't
Mhm.
know what they don't know, right? Those
No,
are,
and there's a lot of, I think we assume that doctors get nutrition classes when they go to school and that they can give nutrition advice, but they don't really. We assume that dietitians are going to get classes on where food comes from because, they're talking about food, but really they don't. So, it really gives us an opportunity then to be able to provide that information and to connect with them and, be that support so that because they are getting those questions. And if they're just then going to Google to find the answer, and as we all know, I think it's 3% of Canadians have a direct access to a farm. So that's a lot of people that don't, haven't even been on a farm, haven't, had that access. So to be able to provide that, I think is very important.
Yeah, I agree. I think you just answered, we just spoke about my next question. What concerns you the most about public perception? And then we can flip that after too. What excites you the most about the work you're doing and any exciting stuff coming up for 2025?
Okay. What concerns me the most? I think I was just at the Center for Food Integrity conference last week, and they released their latest consumer research. And, we did see some slippage in the numbers this year. Oops, sorry, I got a fly buzzing around here. We did see some slippage in those numbers this year. And although farmers are still, trusted, that has gone down a little bit. And so, I think the job of building public trust and consumer awareness about agriculture, isn't done. It's a big job, and we really need to work together. And I'd like to, I guess that's one of my concerns, is I would really like us to, as an industry, to align and to work together and really do a good job of it. We're up against very well-funded animal rights organizations and misinformation and all this stuff. So we really, to make an impact, we need to come together and
I
do
love
a
that.
better job of that. So
I love that you just
that-
said that. That's kind of where I say political. It's just there's big dollars and people that have the opposing mission, right?
Mhm.
Like the PETAs and then big food and all of that kind of stuff. There's just conflicting priorities, and a lot of those organizations put big dollars and then they confuse the message, right? And
Mhm.
prime
Well,
example. Oh, go ahead.
yeah, and I think again, together we're going to have more impact than if we are
Yeah,
all out there individually,
right.
trying to fight that fight or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. A prime example. And I mean, I'm sure it happens to you all the time too, Dorothy, and every farmer in the audience. I was in the health store grabbing a product, and then sometimes I could be chatty Cathy. Guess that, eh? Look at my job. Sometimes I have to talk, but I was just grabbing a product. Somebody came beside and they were looking for the exact same thing. And I said, here's a good one. And we're talking.
Mhm.
We
Mhm.
got into farming. And I said, I'm a beef farmer, so we eat a lot of red meat. And they're like, well, then that's good. At least you know where your food comes from and that it's safe, right?
Mhm.
Because it comes from my little tiny farm. I should have got my pitchfork with my coveralls and they would have felt better about it. But I said,
Maybe we should just lean into that. Yeah.
yeah, maybe we should, eh? The farmer costume. But I
Mhm.
said to them, I said, actually, we'll do our own meat at the farm, but often we run out. So I said, and this is what I said to them. I said, most of the time I go to Superstore or the local butcher and eat the meat just the same as you. You do? I said,
Mhm.
absolutely. Our food system is so safe. Chatted a little bit with them. Just unbelievable. Everybody is so, the general public has drifted, like you said, from their connection to the farm. And it's,
Mhm.
yeah, we have
Yeah,
some
they
conversations.
don't have a big picture of all the things that go into keeping the food safe
Yeah,
and yeah, all the work that's being done on that side. So
yeah. I'm
hmm.
sure we could all share 100 stories about that, different conversations, right?
But that's good.
So
That's important.
yeah, and those are those tiny little conversations. They might just seem like nothing, but it's important to those people. I bet you
Yeah,
now
very.
they've seen me. I would hope I'm relatable, friendly, and they're like, wow, she eats the beef and she can have her own farm beef. Wow, it must be safe, right?
Yeah, and they'll then in turn tell two more people and they'll tell two more and
Yeah,
so on and so on, like that old Fabergé commercial.
exactly. We'll get our message out there, Dorothy. Okay,
Hmm.
so that's what concerns you. Is there anything else that you wanted to touch? And maybe even speaking to the audience of farmers that are tuning in on different things you hear or different things that you're working on, because you know it's a concern in public trust and all of that. So you can add on that, and then some things you're excited about and good stuff coming up.
Yeah. Well, it is such a fun area to work in. And I think we're always, we have people coming to us with stories. We have an advisory council that is out there with their ear to the ground. It includes dietitians and people from agriculture. We have an Indigenous chef that's part of it. And so it really brings, everything into that big picture, and just all the new things that you can learn about agriculture on a day-to-day basis. I find that super inspiring and exciting, and all the innovation out there. I do feel that we're making a lot of progress in aligning with some of the different organizations, the different farm organizations out there. I think we spent so much time, Canadian Food Focus did, getting out of that echo chamber of agriculture to connect with consumers. And we did that. And then suddenly we came out of the pandemic and we started going to conferences, and everybody was saying, we need to talk to consumers. And we're like, oh, well, we're doing that. But we hadn't done the job of sort of telling the industry that we're doing it. So we actually have spent a little bit of time this last year doing more of that. And it's really exciting for them. Like, lots of times when we're doing a presentation, they're like, okay, this is exactly what we needed. We didn't even know it was there. We thought we were going to have to build it, but we're already, well into it. And, where can we go next? So I do feel like there's a lot of opportunity for collaboration going forward, and that makes me super excited.
I love that. I've had an experience of that recently too. Our industry, we think it's fairly small, and it is.
Mhm.
It's big
It
and
is,
small.
yeah.
Uh,
Mhm.
but there are a lot of amazing people doing their roles in agriculture and things you don't even think of. Like, I like to
Mhm.
think I'm fairly connected to agriculture. I'm like, wow, didn't know about that. Didn't know about that, right? So many people doing good work, which is amazing and needed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we just need to hold up a mirror to them and tell their story. So,
Now, I'm going to ask you that question right now. I was supposed to ask it earlier, and then I forgot to.
yeah.
If there's individuals, organizations, okay, that's a big call out. Farmers that want to get involved, whether it's to give videos or do farm tours, let's say dietitians, not really our audience, companies
Mhm.
that want to donate, be involved. Is there room, I assume, for people to contribute to the project? Do you need farmers?
Oh, yes, of course we do. We're
I assume
nothing
so.
without farmers. Yeah, like, I guess all of those things. If somebody thinks they have a great story to tell, we'd like to hear about it, and, you know, uh, potentially tell it. We do, we work with a lot of content developers um, who are feeding us content, but lots of times we're looking for video of, we just got some the other day of a potato harvester from PEI, and that's not something I'm familiar of. And it's just so fascinating to watch how this thing gets the potatoes. And then we actually had another one of picking apples. So
Oh,
yeah, we do have people sending us video. So, we would welcome that, that's for sure. And just to reach out with any ideas, or if an organization wants to collaborate or partner with us, of course, we're open to that. So,
I figured. Well, and the great thing too, in the world we live in, as I said, a lot of farmers, a lot of producers, they have their own account and they're creating content.
mhm,
So
mhm.
it might not even be somebody has to custom create for you. I know an apple farmer I'm thinking of, and then they're already doing that. That would be great content for you guys.
Well, yeah, and even letting us know so we can amplify what they're doing, or
Mm,
potentially tag each other. So that would be great. I often think too, there is a lot of great um, farmer influencers out there, but I think sometimes farmers feel pressured to add that to the list of the many things that they have to do. And so I think that's the other thing that where I think Canadian Food Focus can help, is that you don't have to necessarily be, an expert in developing all that content, because that's a skill unto itself. But if you do have a story, or you do, have a little clip or something like that, that's something that we can, help you tell without you having to learn how to be a TikTok influencer. Yeah.
It's not easy.
No.
And it's not for everybody, right? Not everybody
No.
wants to do that. And
No.
that is a big pressure
Exactly.
too. It's like, oh, I'm a
Mhm.
farmer. I need to be telling my story. No,
Yeah.
not everybody
Along with,
does.
300 other things I got on my list to do today. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Cows got to eat, but I need to do a TikTok. Hold on, cows.
They don't like that.
Yeah, no. Oh, I could just picture it.
Mm.
Okay, so that's exciting stuff. Collaboration,
Mhm.
if farmers want to get involved. You touched a little bit on any tips and tricks for farmers if they want to share their story. Is there
Mhm.
anything else that you wanted to leave us with as we work to wrap up?
Um, Let me think about that for a second. No, I think it's a great time to be telling our story. People are very interested in it, and they want to know, they want to hear from farmers.
They do.
And so I feel like it's a great time to do this work and to get it done.
Yeah, people are craving that connection. And I think
Mhm.
if we waste that opportunity as an industry, that's not good either, right? That movement that happened during and after the pandemic, I think that's important.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
agree. The time
Okay.
is now.
I have loved this conversation, Dorothy. I've taken you
Too,
down a
Tracy.
few rabbit trails. And I'm sure we could have a conversation about this, and it would be great conversations.
Mhm.
Um, if individuals want to learn more and find the hub that you mentioned, what is that website name? We'll include it all in the show notes as well, but where can they find more information?
It's canadianfoodfocus.org. And then you can follow us on any of the platforms at CDN Food Focus. And then my email, it's just Dorothy at Canadian Food Focus. So they can reach out. Actually, it's on the website too, so they can find it
Okay,
there.
perfect. If they want to connect with you. Okay.
Mhm.
And I'll include that all in the show notes, just like I mentioned. Dorothy, this conversation has been amazing. Thank you for joining us. And you know what? On behalf of everybody watching, thank you for the work that you guys are doing. It's important. And I love uniting all the sectors, all the industries for one voice to connect with
Mhm.
consumers. That's amazing.
Yeah, well, lots of farmers, they don't just do one thing. They're doing a lot of things. So
Yeah.
it makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for your time, Dorothy. I appreciate you joining me.
Thank you, Tracy. Have a
You
good
are
day.
so welcome. You guys in the audience, if you love this conversation as much as I did, like it and share it, get it out there so other farmers can hear about the great work that Canadian Food Focus is doing. Thank you guys and see you next week. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Impact Farming. For more great episodes and articles designed to help you manage and grow your farming operation, head on over to farmmarketer.com. Don't forget to sign up while you're there. We will see you on the next episode.